thinking about buying this,
Good.
or I was. Hi, middle-aged gamers. Welcome back. We are here talking about plans for the week as usual. Today on the show, we're going to be skipping my stories most likely because there's so much to talk about. So much stuff happening on social media. But on Adam's side, he's going to talk about RPG Maker's new engine, potentially giving us kind of 2.5D games. And post-game depression, I think you guys must have seen that story as well. And the last thing, or not the last thing, is we've got a few of these. Final Fantasy XIV's age rating in Japan is going to change in photo mode. Is that's what I heard correctly, Adam?
That is correct.
That
Due
is
to photo
correct. The director of Final Fantasy said that the reason people don't jump into Final Fantasy is the time between games. Adam disagrees with that, as you can see if you're watching the
Strongly
live
disagree.
stream. I also disagree with that as someone who's been adjacent to Final Fantasy for many, many years, and as long as I've known Adam. And I want to talk about the PS5 Pro and what you guys are discussing on Reddit and other social media places. I saw a great graphic on Reddit talking about how all the PlayStations have gone down in price over the years, and they showed the PlayStation 5 going up, which I think is not really a fair description, a fair comparison, given what's happening in the world today. We might even also talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. Production is going to be cut by 30% because Nintendo said it's not selling as much as they expected. And it reminded me that a lot of people expected that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I think I even remember Adam talking about that at one point. Today's Reddit question of the week is, what is a video game unwritten rule that every player knows without being told? And our ranking question of the week is going to be, Adam's going to be going through 10 of 2024's most highly ranked Metacritic games by users on Metacritic, and talking about should you play them, should you not play them, what he knows about them. Again, Adam is a busy man. He could not play everything. And, I mean, unless he was a full-time YouTuber, then you could play close to everything. Well, maybe not even everything, but yeah. But tell us about RPG Maker, Adam.
Yeah, so RPG Maker is getting a new engine. It's getting a new look. And yeah, it's going to be matching that Square Enix 2.5D. Kinda, not really. It doesn't look like you can rotate the map like you can in, say, Octopath Traveler or Triangle Strategy. And it does look like when the people are walking around, they are locked to a grid. It's not like completely free roaming. But these games are highly customizable. If you know some coding, maybe you could change that. So overall, RPG Maker is a pretty popular engine. It's got a lot of games under its belt that you've probably heard of: Omori, Undertale, Deltarune, Fear and Hunger, To the Moon, Lisa the Painful. So many more. There are lots of games on this engine. And yeah, the fact that it's going with this new aesthetic is really, really interesting, because the 2.5D games have been really, really popular for Square Enix. And I think a lot of people really kind of like that. Now, we don't know too much on how it's going to work right now. So like I said, it doesn't look like you can rotate the screen. Just looking at the trailer, it looks like what they're kind of doing is they're not actually using 3D worlds, they're simulating them. So for example, if you built a 2D world like you would normally in RPG Maker, and then what it's kind of doing is it's kind of taking the top of the screen and maybe squashing it a little bit, so it's a little bit narrower, and then to compensate, it's kind of giving these fake sides to buildings and such like that, so that it looks like there's a wall there. But if you were to play something like Octopath Traveler, you can tell that the environments are fully 3D, whereas here it looks like they're doing some really creative 2D work to get that effect. So because of that, that's why I think you're probably not going to be able to rotate the screen, because I don't think there's any backs to these things or that sort of thing. And so we're also really curious on just how is it all going to work? Not just that, but just the whole thing. Like, what if you want to add your own assets? So for example, if you've ever used RPG Maker before, you would know that basically it's a series of tiles, and what you can do is you can kind of stamp your tiles down and then connect them to create top-down views of worlds, like what you could see in, say, like a Final Fantasy 1 through 6, or Earthbound, or or Mother, or those kind of games. And because of that, it's very, very static. But here, you stamp it and you move it to the side, and now there's kind of a side to it. So is that siding its own asset, or is that tied to the front-facing stamp? Who knows? Kind of curious there. And if you wanted to create your own, do you have to create a side asset for every front asset, or do you create those separately? Very curious to see how that works. Can you rotate the screen? It's not shown in the trailer, so I'm doubting it, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. It could be. What's combat going to look like? RPG Maker typically does more of the Earthbound style combat, where you have like all the little character things at the bottom of the screen, and then the enemies facing you in the front. Although people do tweak it. For instance, in Omori, your characters take up the 4 corners of the screen, so you can tweak that. And then what other updates are going to be coming with it? What else are we going to be able to see? I'm sure that they're going to change a few other things as well, but the trailer is not very long, so we don't get to see too much with it. Will you be able to import projects? If you're somebody who's working in an RPG Maker project right now, and you're like, oh wow, this is really cool. I'd like to use this instead. Are you going to be able to import that? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. If you're somebody like that created one of these games in the past, could you say like, hey, I'm going to import the game and re-release it as, Omori 2.5 or something like that? Or Omori 1.5, I guess you could even call it, since it's still the first game. Is that an option? I don't know. I would assume maybe not, but, you never know, maybe. Yeah, lots of other questions. So if you have questions, feel free to include those in the comments. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what people are going to be doing with this, because there are a lot of great games that have come out with this engine, and it's a relatively simple engine if you're into creating these kinds of old kind of style RPGs. I have dabbled in RPG Maker in the past. Played some, I think it was RPG Maker. Was it MX? I think it was, or ZX or something like that. I don't really remember what it was exactly, but when my friends and I, growing up, we were in, I guess, probably high school or something like that, and we were playing, or we were using RPG Maker on the original PlayStation. It was not very efficient. If you wanted to create a unique art asset, like if you wanted to create a new character, the sprite sheet took up an entire save slot on the PlayStation, and I think it only had 15 slots per memory card. So 1/15 of your entire memory card was just this one character sheet. So we used all the default stuff, but there's a lot of assets already in the game, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But yeah, we did actually finish one game, relatively speaking. It was in a state where we were like well enough to like give it to people and be like, hey, try this out. It was a lot of fun. We started working on a second game, but we never finished it. So who knows? Maybe now is the time for me to get my old buddies together. We still do our weekly game nights, so maybe this is time for us to be like, hey, you know what? Let's get back on that second project all these years later and finally get it to fruition on this new RPG Maker version. So it'll be fun to see what people do with it. Really looking forward to seeing it. What about you, though? Are you excited? Are you a bit nervous? What are your concerns? What are things you would like to see that they haven't shown yet? What features would you want? Let us know in the comments what you guys think.
I did not know Undertale was made with RPG Maker. That was
I'm pretty
surprising.
sure.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but like, I mean, like you said, you dabbled, like you really, I wouldn't say even you dabbled, like you actually used it. Like I dabbled. I remember installing a version of an RPG Maker. I think I had gotten on a Humble Bundle sale or something like that. I'm like, okay, let's give it this go. Like, okay, cool. This is interesting. And like any video gamer, I would even say maybe more our generation or people who grew up in the 80s, 90s, who were like, yes, I have some basic programming skills. Let's give this a go. I want to make a game. I want to be a game developer, etc., etc. But I did it now, and I'm like, okay, cool. When I have time, I'll do this. And this was, again, years later. I think I was probably in the same generation of Adam with like an RPG MX or something like that years ago. But you should totally do it, Adam. Make that game. But see, when you were making stuff on the PlayStation, right, it was not exportable like you were using RPG Maker on Steam.
No, you could only play it on the PlayStation. And correction,
like
you are right.
Actually,
Undertale was not made using RPG Maker. I was wrong on that. It was made using Game Maker Studio.
Well, I mean, a lot of these things are similar. So
But
that would be an easy thing
the
to say.
guy who made it had previously made games in RPG Maker, but
Oh,
Undertale
got
itself
it.
was not.
No, there definitely are famous games made in RPG Maker. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be what it is today. And endless versions and thousands of assets and that sort of stuff. And now it's even easier. I saw there's an AI website where you drop a sprite in and it'll do all, you can tell the AI, like, please make this sprite do this thing, and it'll do all the animations for you, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. Omori was made in RPG Maker, so
Yeah.
I was wrong about Undertale, but Omori was definitely made. Now I'm curious about Deltarune as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's we'll have to wait and see.
I don't know. I think more accessible tools like this, like Godot is another good example. Um, Again, I haven't used all of these. I think I've played around with Godot.
Is
But
it Godot or
I think,
Godot? Oh, Deltarune was also not RPG Maker. Ah, shoot.
okay.
Now I'm gonna be wrong. I'm gonna get those. Those are gonna be
No,
comments.
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. No, no worries. Um,
I'm
I
gonna
always
get
called it
corrected.
Godot, but I'm pretty sure you're right. It is Godot.
I don't know. I was watching a video on that yesterday. Yes, yeah, actually, and the guy was saying Godot, but I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. While Adam is drinking, I want to transition onto the story that I want to get his opinion on. So I'll bring it in. And this is just me as somebody who, I mean, like Adam and I, we're adjacent to a lot of gaming stories, a lot of gaming news and industry news, and we're passionate about the industry. In this particular case, right, I've never owned a place. That's not true. I owned a PSP Pro way back in the day, which I loved, and I don't know what happened to it. Who knows? Um, but Sony PlayStation announced a new price at some point. Adam will fill you guys in when that actually happened. I don't know when that happened, but this has been blowing up across social media, across threads. I woke up today, as I usually do, because I go to bed early nowadays, and I saw the price was like, hey, um, someone posted a price on Reddit, like this is the first PlayStation that's gone up in price. I said this at the intro as well. So starting literally in 2 days, so this will be on Thursday, Taiwanese time, the disc version of the PlayStation 5 is going to go up $100 to $650. The digital edition is going to go up $100 to $600. The PlayStation 5 Pro is going to go up $150 to $900. And the PS Portal is going to go up $50 to $250. Again, it says these prices are designed to reflect the challenging global economic landscape. Again, a lot of marketing speak right there. And again, very, very true. I am a big fascinator with global economic news and lots of year-round stuff, lots of LNG stuff, talking about Taiwan and how our semiconductor industries needs LNG or liquefied nitrogen, something. What is the G? I forgot. Oh, liquefied nitrogen gas, of course, because they use that to make semiconductors. Of course, if you have no semiconductors, you can't make the chips that go into your GPUs and your CPUs, that sort of stuff, which reduces production. Of course, no oil. The government just announced 2 oil price increases. One happened last week, Monday, and another one happened yesterday here in Taiwan. I'm pretty sure there's going to be one going into next week and the following week after that. So all of this impacts everything. But I know the big question to a lot of you that I want to ask Adam to talk about first on a few different levels is, I'm somebody who is not a console person. Should I buy a PlayStation or PlayStation 5 Pro now? In your experience as a PlayStation 5 user, how have you found it, given how it's changed from that initial console where some stuff might have been missing when the PlayStation 5 launched to where it is at the moment? And I mean, sum it up at the end is like, if you don't own a console, should you buy a PlayStation 5? If you do own maybe a Switch 2 or a Switch, or if you own a PC, as a question as well, is like, should you buy a PlayStation 5 now? And let's even talk about it, because by the time this video will come out, it'll be on a Friday when the price is already up. So should you buy a console as well if the price is already gone up?
If you're planning on buying a PlayStation at any point, yeah, you should buy it now before the prices go up, because traditionally prices of consoles go down. Strangely, this entire generation has been going up, and it's not just PlayStation. Xbox has been going up several times too. Services are also going up, like was it Xbox Game Pass is continuously getting price increases. PlayStation Network has gotten a couple price increases. So yeah, it just seems like the pricing is going up and up and up and not going down, which is not common. So and then like Nintendo now is releasing $80 games, to the point where they said, oh well, we're gonna make it, was it digital and physical games are gonna have a $10 difference in the future. So like if you buy the game digital, it'll be $70, and if you buy it physical, it'll be $80 or something like that. Or maybe it's $60 and $70. I don't remember, but it's like a $10 price difference whether you go digital or physical. So yeah, if you were ever planning on getting a PlayStation, get it now, because maybe someday the price will drop, but that might not actually be until the PlayStation 6 is out. And then it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, now demand for the PS5 has gone down because we have this newer console that we're trying to produce. So we're not manufacturing PS5s at the same rate. So in that sense, I would say get it now because it's only going to get more expensive. Now, is the price keeping up with inflation? Is it outpacing inflation? I don't really know. I haven't been keeping up with inflation. I would assume it's actually outpacing inflation, but I could be wrong. I would have to see an economist about that. But yeah, if you were planning on it, get it now. And I know like people are saying, okay, well, should I get the PlayStation or the PlayStation Pro? That's a $250 difference. So the question is really to you, what is worth $250? Because they are playing the exact same games. The only difference is the PS5 Pro is going to have higher resolution and it's going to have steadier frame rates. So usually it's not going to go higher than 60 frames per second. And PlayStation can sometimes hit 60 frames per second. So, for example, a lot of times on a PlayStation, you get performance mode versus visual or graphical mode. And the graphical mode might hit 4K, but you're hitting maybe 30 frames a second. Whereas performance, you're hitting probably closer to 60K consistently, maybe dropping down to 50 or 40. But most of the time, it's aiming for 60. But your resolution is going to drop to keep that frame rate. So you might be dropping down to 1080p or something like that. And that's the question. It's like, PS Pro, you can have both. You can have the higher frame rate and the higher graphics. With the PlayStation, you might have to choose one over the other. So how much is that worth to you? Is being able to play at 4K at 60 frames per second worth, at what point does that become worth $200? If you can do that for a year, would a year of slightly better graphics and frame rates, would a year of that be worth $250 to you? 2 years, if the PS6 got delayed and it doesn't come out for another 5 years, at what point does that become worthwhile to you? And if it's within 2 years, then I say go for the PS Pro. If you could survive 2 years with having slightly lower frame rates or slightly lower resolution, and that's not worth $250 for you for just 2 years of that, go with the base model. So yeah, it's a very personal question. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's your money. Do with it what you want. As far as, is it worth getting a PlayStation if you already have something like a Switch? Maybe, again, it's going to depend on the games you want to play. Maybe, there are lots of games that are on PlayStation that are not on Switch too. But if you're the kind of person who got a Switch 2, you're probably the kind of person who got it because you knew that you were going to be getting the Nintendo exclusives, and that was kind of your reason for getting it in the first place. So yeah, I don't have an answer. I can help you work through it logically and say like, okay, I should think about this. I can give you a checklist, but I can't give you an answer.
Adam, what about the software, like your day one PlayStation 5 software to where it is at the moment, the PlayStation Store, the overall performance of when you launch your PlayStation, some of the functionality that's been added, like has the experience changed as a PlayStation user?
I mean, they've updated it several times. Most of the changes are behind the scenes. You probably don't notice it as much. I haven't really noticed a difference because it's been incremental over time. if I went back, like for instance, if you gave me a PS5 from a release date PS5 that nobody had touched and it hadn't been updated yet, maybe I would notice a difference. But it's like watching a person grow, right? Like if you are with a person, you can live with them for 10 years and they don't look different to you. And then you see a photo of them and you're like, oh my God, you know, you've changed so much. But when you're there seeing them every day, you don't really notice the differences. It's like that. So I haven't really noticed a huge difference. So
Cool. Another sort of side question. I know a lot of PC gamers talk to me about this when I'm out and about or having conversations with people. Is the assumption is, you know, people always talk about Steam sales, spring sale, summer sale. The assumption is PlayStation never has sales like this where games go down super cheap, like $1 or $2 or $3, American dollars, that is, right? I think I'm wrong. I think they're wrong. Like from what I've heard, PlayStation does have these amazing sales where you can buy 5, 6, 7, 8 games at one time, if I'm correct, right?
yeah, they have sales all the time. And how much I would say on average, it probably doesn't go as the sales aren't as big as they are on Steam. Um, like on Steam, sometimes you'll get games that get like 90% off. Sometimes that's super rare on a PlayStation to get a game like 90% off. But I do occasionally see 80%. And like right now, they have the summer sale. I'm looking at it, and it says on the thing, save up to 75% off. I'm trying to see if they have any that they go higher than that. Most of them are sitting around 20 to 30. Oh, here's one. Hogwarts Legacy is now 85% off. So yeah, it was NT wise, it was 1,890. It's now 283. So I mean, you have an 85% off sale. Pirate Yakuza is 70% off. Silent Hill 2 remake is 50% off. What was it? Tekken 8 is 60% off. Gran Turismo 7 67. So I mean, they have sales all the time. Yeah, the things are just constantly on sale. And once one sale ends, they just immediately pop into the next one. You know, if you go to if you use the PlayStation app like I do, you can go into, if you go into the store part, so you have your like main page here. It says, you know, the games that I've been playing recently. And then you go to the PlayStation Store. And then at the top here, I mean, there's the sale right there. But the third tab is deals. And so there's a tab dedicated purely to what kind of deals they have. And you can see here they have the summer sale the spring sale. They have the spring sale. Then they have some featured games, and then they have, you know, all the deals that you can get. So there are games that are that they have deals for that aren't necessarily part of the sale itself. So yeah, they do sales all the time. Like there's a dedicated tab for deals.
Last question. So I want to put this out. Probably is since it will be out after the price goes up. The price is up, right? You want to buy a new gaming device. Should you be a PlayStation 5 Pro, PlayStation 5, PC in 2026, 2027?
Like I said, it's entirely up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. For me, I would probably go with, yeah, for me, it'd be a hard debate between PlayStation or PlayStation Pro, because is the better, I don't really notice, or I should say I don't notice, the added graphics aren't a huge deal to me, but it is something I'm going to be playing for a couple of years. Like right now, that $250, yeah, I'm going to feel it. But in like 7 months, I'll have forgotten about it, right? That feeling will fade in time. And then at that point, I'll be like, yeah, you know, it's okay. So in that sense, yeah. So it'd be a hard decision. If you are the kind of person who, yeah, but if you want to go PC, just go PC. You know, like I can't tell you how to use your money. It's your choice. It's whatever you want. You have PlayStation exclusives. A lot of them are coming to PlayStation, or a lot of them are coming to PC. They don't come immediately, though. You do have to wait. Although PlayStation is saying that might end, and they might not put out as many of those exclusives. So exclusivity might be more of a selling point in the future. Back to kind of the traditional way of doing it. Hard to say. but there's tons of games on PC. There's so many games on PC, and modding is a huge thing. So for me, if it's a game that I know I'm going to want to mod, like a Bethesda game, I'll get it on PC. If it's a game that I probably not going to mod, like a Final Fantasy, then I'll just get it on the PlayStation. For me, there's also the whole setup element of it. Like we have, I mean, I wouldn't call this an office, but we call it the computer room. But this is the room where the computer is. So if I have to do like an online class, or if I am working on something, or if my wife needs to have like a meeting or something like that, she does online meetings sometimes. We can do it in this room. It's quiet. It's away from everything else. So we have a dedicated room for the computer for that. But like last night, my wife and I, we went out to pick up something I don't remember. And when we came back, because I had been working on something in here, and she's like, "Oh, are you gonna play? Are you gonna play a game?" And she's not really asking if I'm gonna be playing a game. She's asking like, "Oh, are you gonna come spend some time with me in the living room?" Because she's gonna be doing her own thing. But we're together in the same room. We're doing that parallel play thing. We're spending time together. Whereas in here, I'm isolated. So having something hooked up to the main TV where I can play a game and she can watch as I play the game, and we have that feeling of connection there. So yeah, so for me, it's 100% worth having a console and having a PC. But for you, I don't know. Think about your situation. How much money you have to burn, if any. A lot of people don't. So yeah, there's a lot of considerations there. I can give you a checklist, but I can't give you an answer.
I should have given you the typical business sort of personas, would have John, Jenny, and Jim, which is what I learned when I was in marketing school many, many years ago. I think that is what I'll do for a similar question in the future. But let's move on to, anything else? Any of your stories you want to go with to next, Adam?
I'm kind of good for anything, yeah.
Uh, we'll do it in order that I wrote down. The post-game depression.
Yeah, post-game depression. Why'd I say it like it was a happy thing? So yeah, scientists have developed a new scale to measure how sad we feel after completing a really immersive or challenging video game. So yeah, don't feel bad. Post-game depression is real. A recent study published in Current Psychology tells gamers what we already knew, and that is that post-game depression is an actual thing. When you play a game and you finish it, then you feel sad sometimes. They're kind of empty. It's a real feeling. Now, granted, this was a very small study. There were only 370 players in it, and they looked at them playing different kind of games and the ages and all that. But surprise, surprise, RPGs are the biggest culprit of this. And the reason that they gave was, and I quote, "It is these games that players have the greatest influence on character development through their decisions and build the strongest bonds with their characters. The more engaging the game world and the closer the relationship with the character, the more difficult it is to return to reality once the game is over." Which makes perfect sense. You're really invested in this. And they go on to say it is a specific type of grief after loss, reminiscent of parting with a loved one or at the end of an important life stage. Our research shows that for many gamers, the virtual world becomes such a significant source of emotions that returning to everyday life requires time and appropriate psychological tools. These results may help us better understand gamer experiences, and they could be useful in the game design process. They also raise a number of questions about the ethical aspects of game development and taking into account the potential impact of gameplay on player well-being in the process. And that last part kind of gets me because, it's if you are somebody who's a big gamer, it absolutely makes sense, right? We play these games and we get invested into it. And that makes perfect sense because this isn't some new thing. This is the way it's always been. If we have stories, people are storytellers. And if you read a book or you've seen a movie or a TV show, you get invested in the characters. They become, we have very vivid imaginations, and we can not just see these worlds as they're described, but we can feel them too and experience them on some level. And video games are just kind of an amped up version of that because it's visual, it's auditory, and you're interactive with it. So it makes absolute sense that our minds are going to want to empathize with that or to relate to that somehow. So it absolutely makes sense. It's not surprising at all. And when it does end, it does kind of trigger the same parts of our brains or the same emotions that, like, if you graduate from school and you know you're going to go off to get a job and you're moving away and you're leaving all your friends behind, like that's the same thing in the game. The game's over. I'm not going to be interacting with these people anymore. I'm going to be moving on to somewhere else. I'm leaving this game. So it absolutely makes 100% sense to me, and I think for most gamers it is completely understandable. But that last part there, where they're like, this also raises a number of questions about ethical aspects of game development and taking into account the potential impact of gameplay on player well-being in this process. That part to me is a little bit maybe worrying. I don't know. Maybe worrying is not the right word, but like, I don't know. It kind of sounds like somebody's kind of pushing for some censorship there, where they're like, oh, this is dangerous because people are getting too invested into it. And, maybe we should have some regulations on how things are done to protect people from becoming too intertwined with this. And I totally get that. I know that there have been arguments in the past about how games influence people. Right, there's always that argument where, like, oh, people play violent games and they become violent. And of course we know that that's not true, because if you looked at the number of people who play violent games and the number of people who become violent, it doesn't make a lot of sense that that was the cause of it. So yeah, so for me it's kind of like, I don't know, that to me that feels a little bit concerning. Maybe it's not a big deal, maybe it is a good thing, but to me, that when I read that, I was kind of like, oh, it looks like they're trying to, I don't know, it feels a little bit like thought policing, like, I'm gonna regulate what you can see because I want to control your emotions. I don't know. I like being invested in my worlds, and I mean, from a psychologist perspective, I'm sure somebody could look at that and say, like, well, of course you like it. You're addicted, right? So yeah, I don't know if I have much of a leg to stand on. But yeah, let us know. Have you ever experienced post-game depression? Because, I definitely have. I definitely, when I played Cyberpunk and I finished it and I was like, what am I going to play next? I don't really know. Do I really want to play something next? I mean, I kind of want to go back, but I've done everything. There's nothing left to do. And if I did everything, I'd just be doing the same thing I already did. So I've definitely 100% felt that before. And what ethical responsibilities do you think, if any, developers have when creating their games? Because like I said, I, for one, welcome everything they throw at me. I kind of like being attached to a world and characters. I like that feeling. So I'm here for it. But maybe some other people have different concerns or worries. Maybe parents are like, oh yeah, like I'm worried about my kid or something like that. So let us know in the comments what you guys think, because I'm really curious to see what other people's take on this is. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that was a really interesting story. And I mean, in my perspective, for me, I wouldn't call it a post-game depression. Maybe that is what it is, but I I don't remember this growing up, and maybe you can fill me in on your experience there, Adam. But I remember, like, the very first big game of my life was Civilization 1, where I was told this story to other Civilization gamers, where I got this weird megalomania feeling of having nuked everybody and won the game. I'm like, wow, this feels awesome. Uh, and then I did. I'm like, okay, I killed everyone. I'm the winner. The games that I'm the winner are good enough, and I never played it after that. Um, and I played Command and Conquer, and I played with a nod, and then I got into like this phase of my life where I played the bad guy in every RTS game that came out in the 90s, pretty much. I'm like, cool, this is nice, but I never felt anything. And I think the first time I ever felt like I played a game and I finished it was Skyrim. Um, and afterwards, I'm like, wow. And then I thought about Skyrim for like weeks on end after I stopped playing it. When I stopped Warframe for the first time after putting in more hours than I ever did in Skyrim, I thought about Warframe for a while. Should I go back? Should I do that? Um, and then Gone Home as well was like, wow, this story is really impactful. The the Max and Chloe story. Oh God, it's literally on my calendar because the game came out. The new game came out
Life is
last week
Strange.
Friday. Life is Strange. Yeah, Life is Strange Reunion came out last week Friday. Great game to check out if you have the time. Um, that again, amazing. Like I bought the soundtrack for that immediately after I finished the game, and I listened to that same one song of the soundtrack for a month every single day, which tells you how obsessive my personality is. But like, I think games leave effects on people, and that's why I found the story interesting.
Yeah, storytelling in general leaves an effect on people. That's how we communicate. That's how we express. That's part of our evolution, right? Don't go down to that river. It's dangerous. There's crocodiles there. Here's an anecdote. Um, that's how we've evolved to survive. So our brain needs that to. It's what it's designed to do. Um, so yeah, I completely understand that feeling, and you know, yeah, and I get 100% attached to my characters too. Like if I'm playing, I can tell you, um, in was it Fallout 3. I have not played Fallout 3 in a very long time. It came out on the PS5, but the first character that I did, I beat the game, and it's one of those things where like I've beaten the game. There's nothing left to do. Maybe I'll start a new save and try some different paths. But what do I do with this character that I have? Like this is somebody I've been with this whole time. This poor guy, he's going to be left alone in the world. So and I do this all the time. If I play a game and I know that I'm going to be putting it down, I retire the character. I give them a nice place to sit, and I go there, and a nice quiet place or something. So with the character, I found this nice rock just right outside Megaton, where they had this like view of the whole wasteland, and they just plant them on the rock and crouch down. And it's like, okay, buddy, you're just gonna be able to sit here and have a good retirement. And I leave him there, and then that's where he is in Witcher 3. When I finished Witcher 3, and I finished everything, and I have a house in Toussaint, and then Yennefer is there, and I think Ciri might have been there. And so I'm like, okay, like I've just beaten this thing over here. I've finished these last few quests. I could just save the game here, but no, I will march Geralt all the way back to his house, and I'll plant him next to Yennefer, and it's like, okay, now you can be together and retire together and be happy with your loved ones, and then save the game, and that's the last time I touch it. Same with uh with Cyberpunk. I think I was well, I don't think I know I was female V, and I think I left her in Judy's house, and it's like, okay, wake up in the morning and Judy's in bed and you're just sitting there and in front of the TV, and it's like, okay, this is a nice quiet life. I always give my characters that the last time I sign out of the game. So yeah, 100%. I completely understand getting attached to these things. Yeah.
Nice. Let's touch on let's touch on the final story of the time between Final Fantasies is too long. That might make a good short as well. But I have a theory about this. But what do you think?
About Final Fantasy is too long?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if you can make a short out of it. I got like a page and hang on, page and a half of notes here.
I might take a segment out of that. Or
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that
I might take a segment out of
worth
it.
A video or something like that. We'll
yeah. So in a video for promoting Dissidia Duellum, which is the latest Final Fantasy game, Yoshi P, Naoki Yoshida, he mentioned that Final Fantasy is falling out of favor due to infrequent releases, and his reasoning was the Final Fantasy series has an incredibly long history. I've been playing since Final Fantasy 1 in real time, but for younger generations, the recent entries in the series may have been harder to engage with. Part of that is simply because, and I'm sorry to say, the release intervals for new titles have gotten way longer, so some players haven't really had the chance to connect with the series the way older fans have. And that's true. I mean, like if you looked at like Final Fantasy in the 90s, you had Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9 in a span of about maybe 5 or 6 years. There was one coming out every year, or like every other year, or every year and a half. So they were coming in pretty frequently. So if you were a fan of one, you knew that there was another one around the corner. And if you're a fan of Final Fantasy now, like there are 5 years at least between games. Kinda. That's the thing. So like it used to be that Final Fantasies came out fairly frequently, and now the mainline series have big gaps between them. However, if you go over the last 10 years, we've only had two mainline Final Fantasies, Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy 16 in 10 years. However, we've had two spin-offs with World of Final Fantasy and Strangers of Paradise, 6 pixel remasters for 1 through 6, 6 remasters total with 8, 10, 10, 2 Crystal Chronicles, Crisis Core Reunion, and the Ivalice Chronicles, 4 MMO expansions, 2 rebuilds with Final Fantasy Remake and Rebirth, Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Rebirth, 5 mobile games, Mobius, Final Fantasy, War of the Lions, Dissidia, Final Fantasy Ocarina, Final Fantasy 17 First Soldier, and Final Fantasy 7 First Soldier, and Final Fantasy 7 Ever Crisis. We've had a fighting game with Dissidia, Final Fantasy NT. We've had a kart racer with Chocobo GP. We've had a rhythm game with Tetra Rhythm Power Line. And honestly, we have more because he was advertising Dissidia Duellum, which is a new game. And there are lots of other games that have been released in Japan only. So if you go through the math, in the last 10 years, we've had 25 games. Only 2 of them are mainline, but 25 Final Fantasy games released in the last 10 years. So is frequency really the issue here? I'm going to have to say no, because there's plenty of entry points for, new players. But when you look at this list, you start to notice something. Final Fantasy has been making wild changes between every single one of their games. They're changing up the battle system consistently. They're changing whether it's a party game or a single protagonist. They're changing up whether it is a single player game or an MMO. They are changing up whether it is a traditional release where you pay one time and play the game, or if it's a free to play gacha game. And that's what I think the real issue is for players. Because if you come in and your friend says, hey, let's play Final Fantasy 14 and it's an MMO, and you're like, you play it and you really like it, you're like, wow, this is an MMO, I'm having a lot of fun here, and so let me try Final Fantasy 15. Oh wait, this is a completely different game. This is kind of like a streamlined action-oriented thing. This isn't really what I liked about Final Fantasy 14. Or maybe you come in on Final Fantasy 15 and you liked it. You liked the character dynamics. You liked the way the party dynamics and the way they work together. So then you're like, all right, let's go to Final Fantasy 16. But now it's more of a Devil May Cry style game. And it really focuses on only one protagonist. And there's not that same interaction. You're like, oh, this isn't really what I liked about the old one. Or you play Final Fantasy 16 and you're like, oh my God, this is so great. I love this action-oriented combat. And then you go to Final Fantasy 7 Remake and you're like, oh, it's this weird turn-based hybrid, and I'm switching between characters all the time, and I have to. So if you like one game, so traditionally, if you played Final Fantasy 14 and then you come into 15, it's not that different. You're like, okay, this is the same kind of game. I enjoyed the last one. The story's different, but the style of game is roughly the same. And then if you went from 6 to 7, it was the same thing. And 7 to 8, it was the same thing. And 8 to 9, and 9 to 10. But then after 10, 11 went MMO, and then 12 went with this kind of real-time action, but that you could program the things with AI. And then 13, you could only control one character at a time, and the other characters were controlled by AI, but it was this kind of hybrid turn-based type thing. And then you get to 14, and then that's an MMO again. And then you get to 15, which is like streamlined action. And then you get 16, which is like really fast-paced Devil May Cry style action. So I think the reason that new players are not engaging with the franchise the same way is because when you like one game, that doesn't tell you anything about whether you'll like another game. Whereas in the past that was 100% true. So yeah, I do. Square Enix, is it because the gap between the franchise or the gap between the games is too big, or is it just because the differences in gameplay mean that one game has no bearing on whether you would like the next one? Square Enix seems to think it's the former. They seem to think that if you pick up one Final Fantasy, that should endear you to the world of chocobos and Moogles and sometimes materia, sometimes not, but summons, the icons, they seem to think that that's going to endear you to that world, and you're going to be willing to chase that no matter where you go, no matter what the gameplay is, no matter, um, you're there for the world. Whereas I think it's more of the former. I think the reason people got engaged with the world is because they liked the gameplay first, and that was the kind of game they like, and then they kept coming back to it, and then it became familiar, and that's what made lifelong fans. So that's my opinion. But what's yours? Let us know in the comments. Really curious to see what's your take on all this. So
I was just like, as you were talking, I'm like, oh my god, this is actually, you said it so well. And I'm like, okay, my original idea, like you talked about the RPG Maker Click, like interesting, cool. Then I'm like, okay, the PS5 Pro story, that's the thing that's gonna do it. And then I was just looking at Google Trends. I'm like, oh no, Final Fantasy is literally trending in the last 24 hours on YouTube. Um, and so this is the video that's gonna be coming out on Friday.
excellent. So nobody will
Yeah.
hear my claims that Deltarune has made an RPG.
Yeah, nobody will hear that unless they go back and watch the live stream.
Well, but then they can see me correct myself. So
Exactly.
but
exactly.
yeah, like because like Duellum just came out, and it's a new Dissidia game, and there are 2 other Dissidia games, and the first 2
I meaning
Dissidia...
to ask you about that. That's also like been popping up on like searches and stuff and ads and YouTube as well. I'm like, what the hell is this game, and why has Adam never talked about it before?
So that's the thing. Okay, so there's 4 Dissidia games, and Dissidia is Final Fantasy's fighting franchise. It's kind of like their, not Tekken. It's that kind of game, right? If you played the original one on the PSP, you could pick your characters and you could fight each other, and so you could have protagonists from across the franchise fighting other protagonists or villains from across the franchise. So you could play as Sephiroth, and you could fight Cecil from Final Fantasy IV if you wanted to. I think he was in the... But so you could so it was like a fighting game basically, and it was super fun. It's very different than the typical fighting game that you would get with like Street Fighter or something like that. These are the big open arenas, and you're like knocking each other super back. It's probably closer to the Dragon Ball fighting games, if anything. If you played one of the Dragon Ball games, it's similar to that. And so they had that, and then they released Dissidia Duodecim, I think was the name, which was a sequel to it, and it was the same kind of thing. Basically, this almost exactly the same kind of game. And then they released Dissidia NT. And Dissidia NT was a little bit different. It was the same kind of idea, big arenas and you're fighting people. But the difference was, instead of being 1-on-1 matches, it was 3-on-3 matches. And so you would, I trying to remember if you would, I think you picked one character and you had 3, I think it was 3v3, so it was like you were playing with 6 other people. But yeah, so it was a big fight, but now you're playing in teams. It's not 1-on-1 matches anymore like it was in the older games. But overall, the idea was relatively the same. So if you're a fan of Dissidia, you're like, okay, I played the first game, it was a fighting game, I loved it. So I played the second game, it's basically the same thing. Like if I like Tekken 6, I'm gonna like Tekken 7 probably. That sort of thing. And then NT, some people were like, I don't really like the team aspect of it. I kind of wish it was the same as the old ones, like more like a single player type thing. But the gameplay is not super different. But then this one is a free to play gacha game. So it's so if you played the first 3 Dissidias and then you play the 4th Dissidia, it's not that kind of game anymore. It's a completely different game. And so I think it's gacha game. Maybe it's not, but I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, it's on mobile. You don't have the free controls where you run wherever you want. You have like the buttons at the bottom, and you tap them to get your attacks out, and it's just not like the other Dissidias. So if you were a Dissidia fan and you're like, oh right, you hear a new Dissidia, you're like, yay, new Dissidia game. And then it comes out and it's like, oh, this is so different. And the presentation is very different too, because in the previous games, it's always this kind of nonsensical, like, oh, the chaos, the god of evil, and I don't remember, goddess of light or whatever. Cosmos, I think who it was. Summons the good characters, and Chaos summons the bad characters, and they're going to do battle, and they have their minions fighting for them. And in this one, it's like, oh, it's this world where all these Final Fantasy characters kind of live together as like teenagers in Shibuya kind of deal. Um, so they're like, oh, look at all these cute new designs, for our characters, and that sort of thing. It's very, very different from the previous games in the setup, and both the setup and the actual gameplay. So yeah, if you were a previous Dissidia fan, you might not be a fan of this one. And if you're a fan of this one, you might go back and be like, oh, I don't like these older games at all. So, I think it's that same problem of the identity. There's no consistent identity anymore.
No, I totally agree with you. And this sort of people have said this about the Warhammer franchise when it was sold from like THQ, and then everybody else got their hand on the franchise, and then you had Warhammer Dakar Squadron and a Warhammer racing game, and so many. I'm looking at the Dissidia thing, and it actually looks really pretty, really interesting. I'm looking at the iOS app, of course. 3 versus 3 team boss battle arena. And I'm like, wow. And then you've got the season bonus mega pack for $6.59, season bonus giga pack for $14.59, Moge pack B, C, D, E. Don't know what any of these mean. It's I mean, a typical free to play game, I would say.
Yeah, they got lots of microtransactions, which if you're into that sort of thing, then more power to you. I have zero problem with doing this, but this is kind of for me also why I've always said, like, I don't mind Final Fantasy branching out and trying all these new things, but I think they need to be a little more careful with their naming conventions, because like I said, the first 3 Dissidia games were relatively the same, or the same kind of concept, and this one is so different. So if you're like, oh, a new Dissidia game, and then you look at this, you're like, this is not a Dissidia game. And the same thing with their mainline franchises, where, like I said, if you played Final Fantasy 16 and you really, really liked it, and you're like, oh, great, like let me check out older entries. Because that's the thing too, is he says, I've been playing in real time, but if you're playing Final Fantasy 16, there's nothing to stop you from going back and playing older Final Fantasies. Like, you can go back and play Pixel Remaster, which I understand for some people, they're like, back to 2D. That's just, so I kind of get that. That is a bar of entry. But yeah, there's nothing stopping you from going back and playing older games. So it's not like there are no games for them to play. They can go back and check older games. I've seen, like, I've been watching a guy on Twitter who he played Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and then he played Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, and he was like, oh, I'm going to go back and play the older Final Fantasy games. So then he went back and played the original Final Fantasy 7. And then he went and he played Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core Reunion. And and then he watched Advent Children. So I mean, he got invested and he played the older games. There was nothing stopping him from doing that. And he did, and he really enjoyed it. And some people will. But yeah, some people will not. Some people will be like, oh, this is just too different. This is not, I enjoyed it for this and it's not that. Or rather, it's this now and it wasn't that. So, that's why I never got into it in the first place. So, yeah, yeah.
Very interesting. I wanted to add a few thoughts, but given that we were running a little low on time today, let us record your last 2 videos.
Sure.
Okay, so Adam, for today's ranking video, let's see how well it does. You can give us a game. These are 2024's best games according to the users of Metacritic. Because I know a lot of you guys do not like the critics of Metacritic, so we'll go by the users. So again, you might have, as I said at the intro, guys, Adam might have played some of them. He might not have played all of them, for sure. Not. He's definitely played more than me as I looked at the list. So if he hasn't played them, I mean, he's heard stuff. I've heard about all of the games on the list. I have an idea of how well they were received and issues, that sort of stuff. That's how Adam will judge them. So 10, you must play it. 1, it's terrible, avoid it. Though you've never given an F on the other series, so
and why would I now? These are the top ranked games
exactly,
on the top ranked games on Metacritic. So why would I say don't play that? It's super high rank.
All right, number 10. May 21st, 2024. Paper Trail is a top-down puzzle adventure.
Paper chip.
No worries. Marvel vs. Capcom, September 12th, 2024. Fighting Collection.
Marvel vs. Capcom are usually pretty good. If you like fighting games, they're usually pretty solid, and they're a lot of fun. You know, to see how these franchises kind of hit against each other. So yeah, I would. So if I could give it a rank, I don't know for this one specifically, but I mean in the past they've always been like an A. So
I'm just gonna give us 10 is a must play.
oh,
We're
10 is a
going
must
back to
play.
numbers. Yeah.
I'm scaling them 1 to 10.
Yes.
Oh God. 7?
Sure. Okay.
Oh wait, am
Moving
I
on
ranking
to
like everyone gets its own number?
no. Just you're just rating each
Okay,
individual
okay.
game in the top 10.
I don't know.
Yeah.
7?
Sure. Anomaly Agent, cyberpunk action platformer.
Never heard of it.
No problem. Until then, is a story game made in Indonesia about life in Indonesia. It's actually on my Steam wishlist.
It's on my wish list too. I see it go on sale on occasion. I don't know. I haven't played it, so I would say I don't know 6. I
Okay.
want to play it, but I really don't
Satisfactory.
know. Satisfactory. That's the kind of game that I would enjoy. You know, that's one of those like building things. So I'm gonna say like a. For
All right.
me, I don't know if you'd enjoy it.
For sure. I mean, this is all about you, right? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Rebirth, I'm gonna say is a 9. It is a huge time investment, and you probably should play remake first, and you probably should play the original before that. So it is a huge investment. So I can't give it a 10 because I know for a lot of people it's just like that's too much. But for me, it's 9. For me, 10. But if I'm recommending to somebody else, I'd say 9.
All right. Number 4 on Metacritic's list is Sonic's X Shadow Generations. Antoine talked about this back in the day.
If you're a Sonic fan, I know a few Sonic fans, and they would probably say, you know, I don't know. I haven't heard any of them talking about this one specifically. I don't know. 6, 7, 8. I don't know anything about. I haven't played a Sonic game in so long.
Number 3, Astrobot.
Astrobot. If you like a platformer, absolutely go for it. Platformers have fallen out of fashion though, so I'm gonna give it a 7.
Number 2 in 2024 was Silent Hill 2.
Ooh, Silent Hill 2 is a fantastic game. Everybody should play Silent Hill. But for some people like Korean, it's too spooky. So I'm gonna say 9.
And number 1, Still Blade for 2024, as voted
Really?
by users.
I
Yeah,
was
number 1 is Still Blade.
I was expecting Claire Obscure.
This is 2024.
2 years
Claire,
ago?
yeah. 2 years
Okay.
ago.
Okay. Well, Stellar Blade. Oh no, for me, Stellar Blade is a 10. But I know some people don't like certain aspects of it, so I'll say a 9. For me, it's 10. For if I was recommending it, I say 9. Some people can't get over the aesthetic.
I mean, yeah. So Metascore, Astrobot was 1. Elden Ring was 2. Metaphor was 3. Final Fantasy was 4. UFO 50 is a collection of single player games was 5.
Yeah, I know Elden
Slay
Ring,
the
but I don't know some of these other games on this list.
I know I don't know the collection game. So this is the Metacritic score. Slay the Princess 6, Satisfactory
Okay.
7, Caves of Kud 8, Balatro 9, and Animal Well 10.
I know Animal Well. I know Slay the Princess.
Yeah. Slay the Princess is on my wish list of things to give a go.
I don't think. Yeah, I'm not like super. I know other people have played it, and I know they really really enjoy it. But I don't know if I. Yeah, I'm not super big into the visual novel style. I've played them a few. Like I said, I played Coffee Talk, and it was like, yeah, it was fine. It was kind of like.
It's okay. Like for me, I think I've said it on the live stream before. It's like I have to be in a mood to play this kind of game, and that happens once a year if I'm lucky.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, going
mm.
through this list, I'm like, oh, like I'm just throwing random numbers out for half of them. Like Sonic and Shadow Generations. I liked Sonic Mania. That was the last Sonic game I played. I thought it was great. I love me some 2D Sonic. I was never big into the 3D Sonics. I don't know why. Like I tried Sonic Adventure and it was kind of like, it doesn't feel the same. And I don't think I've played a 3D one since. But I love some 2D Sonic. So Sonic Shadow Generations, I probably wouldn't be super into it, but I know a lot of big Sonic fans. Um, so I was a huge Sonic fan in the Genesis era. There's like two generations of Sonic fans. There's like the Genesis era Sonic fans and post Genesis. There's like the 2D era Sonic fans and the 3D era Sonic fans. Very different.
Indeed. All right, last question for today, sir, is what's a video game unwritten rule that every player knows without being told?
I got 3 rules for you. Number 1, waterfalls. Always check behind them. There's always something good behind a waterfall. And if there isn't something good behind a waterfall, that's just because they're tricking you because there's a different waterfall that does have something good behind it. Number 2, never take the obvious path because it's, if you know it's the right way, it's the wrong way because all the good stuff is on the wrong path. So, always go the less obvious path because that's where you're going to get the best gear, weapons, secret bosses, name it. And finally, number 3, always save twice because if you save one time, you accidentally hit the wrong button and didn't save. So saving twice is the only way to actually save a game.
That's gonna be my favorite short. Out of all the I want to say the Iton Sijian stuff, the short stuff we've talked about today, like that's the favorite.
Because that's the shortest.
No, but it was like it's the most impactful. Like, oh my god, this really resonates with me internally.
Yeah, the save thing is so true. I do it all the time where I'm like, did I save? Because also too, like the game's always like, because it says like save, you click save, and then it says, are you sure? And you can click yes or no. But if you click one button, it says yes, but there's also a cancel button. So there's 2 ways to cancel and only 1 way to confirm. So the odds that you canceled seem to be higher than the odds that you confirmed. And so it's kind of like, so it's happened to me before too, where I'm like, I could have sworn I saved and I didn't. And so now I like always save twice. Like, did I save? Did I accidentally hit the wrong button? Oh, I should just save twice just to be safe. So always save twice. It's the only way to be sure. It's like double tapping. It's like double tapping a zombie.
Yes, exactly.
Use the double tap.
My thing with saving is way back in the day. This goes back 10 years ago. I remember saves. It must have been for like a Dragon Age game, and I saved like I'm a save scummer. I saved like with everything. And I think my save file had ballooned to like 10 gigabytes of saves. And then I was like, where is my space going? What is happening on the computer? And now I just overwrite saves all the time. And that goes back to your issue of like, did I overwrite this? Is this the right one? Is this the one that I did before? And it just confuses the hell out of me sometimes.
I'm the kind of person that typically only has 1 save, unless I know that there's a time. Like if I know that the design of the game is set up that there's a branching path and you can compare the other, and ooh, I don't aim to go down this way. Or if it's a game like Final Fantasy Tactics, and I know that, and they'll often warn you. They say like you're about to go into a sequence of fights, not be able to return to the world map until that sequence is over. So I will keep 1 save on the main map, and I'll have 1 save in those series of fights until I get. Just because I'm like, oh, if I'm under leveled or something, like you can't back out, you're screwed. So it's like, okay, I have a save before I went into that locked in phase, and I can grind or whatever. Good. So in that case, I'll have 2 saves, but never more than. I mean, I'll have like different characters. So if I'm like playing Skyrim, I'll save for 1, save for a different, save for a different. That's different, but like per character, saved it.
Yeah, no, I do. I used to just save like anytime I was on open slot. Now I do like less than 10. I think my Crimson Desert, I'm about 8 or 9 saves in at the moment, and I just sort of I always make sure to focus because as I've gotten older, the focus is horrible. Like, okay, what was the date of this save? Did something important happen there? If it did, don't save and choose another one. I mean, that's how I tend to save now.
Yeah, I might have been in the day. I think I was just shaped by playing RPGs, like early RPGs. Like I think if you played Final Fantasy 3, which is fun, if you played Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo, they had like 3 save slots, and so there was slot 1 and slot 2 and slot 3, and you couldn't choose to move to a different slot. You know, you can only save in your slot. But the reason it did that was because, like, oh, you know, if you're in a family and you have your save and your brother has his save and your sister has her save, and so because of that, you know, then it was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is my save, and I just got used to saving in the same slot, and I kind of saw it as other saves are for other iterances of the game. They're not for, you know, multiple saves in this one iterance. If I hadn't grown up with that, maybe I would have been different. I don't. Maybe that's something games have influenced me.
So interesting because exactly like I came from the PC era, going back to the 80s, where I don't remember a save games in like the 80 games, the very super basic games I played in the late 80s, but when I was like 5, 6 years old. But I remember save slots, and in PC, I mean, you had as many save slots as you had hard drive space, pretty much. Um, so it was that. But we should get going because we are super overtime here today. But thank you as always, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Thanks as always for the Crimson Desert love and the Dragon's Dogma 2 love. Maybe we'll get Adam to jump on the Dragon's Dogma 2 bandwagon again once the DLC comes out.
Yeah, 100%. You know, you don't have to get. I will do it. I mean,
Oh, he will do it. There you go. And then we'll be able to have like a really realistic reflection of like, all right, I played Crimson Desert and I played Dragon's Dogma again. What is the game like?
yeah, it'd be interesting to see what changes.
For sure. All right. You guys take care. See you next week, Tuesday, for more news, more games, and other things in between.